Welcome back to r/Neighbors from Hell, where people share stories about their crazy neighbors. And if you're new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe to join our amazing community. And without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. The first one is titled, "Insane Neighbor Built a 15-foot garden wall to block our son Terrace view." I decided during the pandemic to use my extra time to add some beauty to my house. In turn, I ended up creating a wonderful sun terrace where me and my wife could enjoy the outdoors while still being safe. Most people in the world would not have a problem when it came to us building this, and then again, the neighbor was not like most people. He was honestly one of the worst kind of people I could ever imagine living next to, only he was actually worse than a scenario that I could come up with in my head. We had problems with him for years, and over the last couple of years it seemed to just be getting worse. I guess he could be described as a typical party guy, except for the fact that he was in his 40s and way too old to be acting like a teenager. Now, he would throw house parties that would usually go into the early hours of the morning, and then the next day we would find trash on our lawn and would have to bug him until he would finally come and clean it up. Another thing was that this guy was a total pothead and he constantly smelled of weed. I'm not sure if I ever had a conversation with this guy where he was not at least coming down off of a high. I don't know what he did for a living to even pay for his house, because he just seemed to party and smoke. So, as you could guess, our yard was not the nicest place for us to try and relax, hence one of the reasons that I made a sun terrace to begin with. The downside of it overlooking his garden was just the luck of where the build made sense to go. Clearly, he did not like that we made this terrace and wanted to start problems about it. "Neighbor, what the hell is that thing?" He pointed to the new sun terrace and I could already tell he was high as a kite. Me, "That is the new sun terrace I built, so me and the wife can be out in the sun while still being on our property." "Neighbor, you didn't think to ask me first? That thing is totally going to ruin how my house looks. Everyone who visits me will be able to look over and see you two sitting out there like you're a spice or something." Me, "We face the other way, besides we won't really be out there at night." "Neighbor, plus it's going to overlook my garden and take away all the sun from my plants." His garden was not anything special and mostly was made up of flowers that he forgot to take care of and were mostly dead. Like usual, most of what this guy said did not make much sense. I found it easiest to try and ignore him and made up an excuse that I had to leave. I just assured him that there would be plenty of sun for his plants and went on my way. Clearly, he did not like that we didn't have his permission or blessing to build the thing, so he wanted to try and get his revenge. His revenge ended up being a 15-foot, or feet, I always forget how to say that, high garden wall that completely blocked any sun from getting to us. When I say this thing was built close to us, I mean I could probably touch it from where I was. There was no way a fence this height was legal, and it was gaining the notice of everyone around us. People walking their dogs would stop and try to get a better look at the fence that was over twice the height of what a normal fence should have been. Even people driving by would end up turning around and coming back to get another look at the monstrosity. To call it an eyesore would have been an understatement, because not only was it high, but it was extremely badly done. It was clear that he did it himself, and it looked less like a fence and more like a giant wooden wall. The other neighbors that surrounded him also wanted the wall taken down because of how much of an eyesore it was and made the whole block look ugly. He apparently got away with building it because he lied about how tall he was making the fence when he got it approved. Nobody came to check on it, and it was done so quickly there was not any time for an inspector to check halfway through the process. Still, somebody needed to know that what he got approved for did not happen, and instead this thing was built. My wife was also devastated because after 8 weeks of building, we got only a few days of feeling normal again before that too was taken away from us. We went to the city and they promised they would have somebody come down and look at it. It usually takes a while, but the sheer number of complaints had someone coming out after only a week and seeing the complete disaster that this guy built. They, of course, told him that it was well out of code and had to be taken down. He argued that he had a right to a fence, and after a few days of fighting, they settled on telling him that he could send a new proposition to build a fence that was an appropriate height. You could tell that he was not happy and wanted to fight to keep this thing just to spite me and my wife. During this time, his party guests were still somehow throwing trash onto our side of the property, even more so than usual. I think he was having them do it on purpose once the city told him to lower the fence length. As I write this, he still has not removed the fence and only has a few more days to either lower it or remove it completely before stronger action is taken. The last I heard though, he was still fighting with the city council and wanting to take it to the courts to keep his overgrown fence. He wants to cite my legally approved son Terrace as the reason, stating that we are invading his privacy. So this is even more proof that he only wanted to build the fence to try and make us get rid of our son Terrace. I don't know what he is going to hear back from them, but I think they are working on something that could let him have a fence without a new proposal, as long as he lowers it to an acceptable height. Additionally, it would have to be redone by a professional because it doesn't meet the guidelines as far as how a fence needs to be built in this neighborhood. Honestly, I don't really care if he gets a fence or not, I just want it lowered so I can enjoy the sun again instead of a brick wall. Things move slowly, but I have high hopes that it will be taken down soon enough. And guys, thankfully there was also an update to the story that reads like this. Update, Reddit, I got some amazing news. The council made a decision and my a-hole neighbor now needs to replace his wall with a standard fence. Thanks for your helpful and funny comments. Edit, for people who didn't understand what I said in my update, by standard fence I meant that the neighbor needs to lower his wall, which then in return could be considered more of a fence again. And yeah, ripe stars, I am very happy for OP that there is a sort of positive outcome, but it really seems like there are just some neighbors that are always jealous of what you have and they always wish the worst on you. Have you ever had any neighbors like this? If you had, please feel free to share your experiences either in the comments or on r/ripe stories on Reddit, which is our own subreddit. In addition, if you want to support my channel, I would really appreciate it if you could post some star emojis in the comments. Thank you so much in advance, your support is very much appreciated. The next one is titled Car Repair Revenge. The players are John, the owner of the auto shop, Tim, other mechanic, and A-hole, customer, and me, other tech. This occurred in the mid-90s, so the details may be a bit off, a little long as well. All amounts in US dollars. John owned a small automotive repair shop doing general repairs on most brands of vehicles. There were 3 of us working there, the owner and 2 techs. We got a call one day from a new customer whose BMW would not start and was nearby at a golf course. I sent a tow truck and had the BMW put into a stall. Sure enough, it would crank over but not fire off and start. I checked for spark and there was plenty. Now to check the fuel system. No fuel pressure, went under the hood again to check the fuel pump relay, no problem there. Now to check power at the fuel pump. The manual said the fuel pump was in the inner fender liner in front of the left rear wheel. Pulled the wheel off and the liner back and lo and behold, no fuel pump. There was a fuel filter there though, went back to the manual and looked up the next production year BMW and it said the fuel pump was internally mounted in the fuel tank. So I cleaned myself up well, car had white leather, and removed the rear seat to access the fuel pump. The fuel pump only has power while cranking our engine running, so I got time to crank the engine over while I checked the power to the fuel pump. The pump had power to it. I priced out the fuel pump and wrote the estimate. It came out to approximately $625. When the customer called for the estimate, Tim answered the phone and gave him this total $525.68, no towing included. It was on the ticket, but Tim just missed it. At the last minute I remembered the fuel filter and ordered one and installed it on the vehicle at no labor costs, just the cost of the fuel filter plus a little tax. When a whole customer came to pick up the car, I heard a lot of loud voices in the office and went in and took over the customer. He wanted to know why his bill was $625 instead of the $525 he was quoted. I explained that the quote Tim gave him did not include towing of $75 and that I had forgotten the fuel filter at $25 plus tax and had installed it at no labor charge. A whole customer raised his voice, suggesting that the fuel filter was the problem and not the fuel pump. I assured him this was not the case and he demanded the old parts. No problem, as we would just throw them away anyway. So he wrote a check. About a week later, the check comes back as stopped payment. Turns out a whole customer lived in another county and our DA's office, local prosecutor, will not take action on out-of-county checks. John calls the customer to see why he would stop payment on the check. A whole customer ranted that he had taken the fuel pump to his mechanic and that guy said the fuel pump was good and that we had ripped him off. This was total BS, as a restricted fuel filter won't hardly keep a vehicle from starting, although it might affect the acceleration a little bit. Fast forward to a few months later and we sued a whole customer in small claims court. A friend who is an attorney represented us for free and said if we collect to add $500 for his fee. We paid $25 for a process server and he was served. A whole customer never showed up for court, so we won by default. Now his bill is around $1,175 with court costs, attorney fees and such. In Texas, if a customer does not pay for a car repair, we can enforce a mechanic's lien on the vehicle and even take it from anywhere we find it. Also, it cannot be sold to another part with a lien on it. A couple of months later, we were telling this story to another local who owns a tire shop. Turns out the a-hole customer had bought a set of tires and stopped payment on that check as well. A-hole customer was trying to play the system, knowing that out-of-county checks won't be prosecuted. A few months after that, I saw the BMW at the local golf course parking lot and sent a wrecker to pick it up. Now the bill is $1,350 with the impound fee on top. The wrecker company took the car to their yard and then called the local police department to inform them of a repossession. When a-hole customer finished his golf game and came out to go home or wherever a-hole customers go and found his car missing, he called the police to report it stolen. The police informed him it had been taken on a mechanic's lien and to not come on our property unless it was to pay for his outstanding bill. A-hole customer called up and yelled at John, cursing and hollering. John hung up on him. A-hole customer called back, cursing and hollering again. John hung up again. A-hole customer called back a third time and John told him, "If you want to discuss this like an adult, I will. Otherwise I'm not going to listen to cursing and yelling." John explained that the bill to redeem his car was now $1,350. A-hole customer said, "I will sue you." John asked him if he remembered being served by the constable a few months ago, that we sued him already, and he never showed up. A-hole customer then said he would just let the banks take the car back. Okay, no problem there. The bank will pay the bill and auction the car, and whatever wasn't covered by the auction, a-hole customer will still owe. I got the call from the bank asking how much was owed on our bill. I informed them of the balance due, and I asked the banker what was owed on the car. The balance at the bank was around $9,000 and the car was worth around $6,000. At an auction, it might bring $3,500, so if a-hole customer let it go back to the bank, not only would he have a repossession hurting his credit, he would still owe the bank around $6,850 and have no car. A-hole customer's wife called and asked to come in and pay for the car. We told her the amount and told her only cash. She came and paid. Now for the revenge, we called our friend at the tire shop that a-hole customer had screwed over on the tires. I think it was around $1,100. He arranged for a wrecker to pick up the car after a-hole customer's wife paid us and took it to another impound yard, incurring another $175 impound plus the $1,100 for the tires. So, for a whole customer trying to screw us out of $625, he ended up paying us $1,350 and our friend's shop $1,275 for a total of $2,625. I bet his wife was really pissed, and that probably put an end to his golfing for a while. And Ripe Stars, even though this was posted on a revenge subreddit, I would say this is textbook perfect a-hole tax. And the next one is titled Fundraiser Petty Revenge. So, this is not my story, but it is my fiance's from last night. I wanted to post it because it had me rolling on the floor. So, my fiance is a server at a local brewery. Yesterday, a local church wanted to have a fundraiser there so that people would come in, buy food, some of the money would go to charity, you know, the basic drill of how a fundraiser works. Well, one of the customers came and ordered French onion soup. The restaurant offers soup in bread bowls if you want, but because of the fundraiser and how busy it was, they ran out. Well, French onion soup lady really wants that bread bowl. My fiance says, "I'm sorry, we actually just ran out. But I can bring you a regular bowl and some bread on the side if you like." But obviously, this is not good enough. She must have her bread bowl. So she asks, "What are you going to do about it? I always get the bread bowl." My fiance reiterates, "I can bring it out in a regular bowl and have bread on the side for you." But nope, not good enough, but there is nothing she can do, so she gets the bowl. Doesn't get the bread because it is not a bowl. Whatever, moving on. She gets called over again, only to be told by FO Lady that she always gets cheddar cheese on top of her soup, something they definitely don't offer because they don't have grated cheddar cheese. They literally have a block of cheddar that they hand chop. My fiance says, "Oh, I'm sorry, I missed it. Let me go take care of that." At this point, there is a few other things that go wrong with this lady's meal, like there were no straws or whatever stupid spoiled antics she could pull. Towards the end of the meal, my fiance lets the manager know that she had a table that might complain, but here is the story ahead of time. Well, the manager, knowing she was part of the fundraiser, decides to get really petty and walks up to the table and FO Lady and says, "Ma'am, I heard that there were some issues with your soup today. I'm so sorry to hear about it. But I wanted to let you know that because of the trouble, we removed it from your bill," and walks away. The whole reason for her being there was to buy food so that money would get donated to the charity. But because of her Karen attitude, the manager removed the soup from the bill, meaning she no longer donated to the charity, making her look bad in front of her church and friends. And Ripe Stars, with this we have reached the end of the video. However, if you still cannot get enough of my content, then I would highly suggest to check out my endless binge watch playlist, which will soon show up in the left corner of the screen. In addition, I would really appreciate it if you could not only subscribe to the channel, but also turn on the bell notifications, which you can do by clicking on the little bell icon right next to the subscribe button. This will help my channel tremendously, and this will make sure that you don't miss any of my videos. Furthermore, if you want to see additional Ripe content that I don't post on YouTube, then I would suggest to head on over to patreon.com/ripeyoutube for more than 50 exclusive videos that you will not see anywhere else. Thank you so much for your amazing daily support, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.